I will call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and announce that this meeting is being streamed live to the Carroll Media Center's YouTube channel as well as the town's Facebook. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Sykesville's Mayor and Town Council Meeting. Tonight is and all day has been March 10, 2025, and we call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, everybody, thank you. All right, well, our first order of business, as always, is public comment. Joe, has anyone signed up?
No one has signed up, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I will skip over that section and move right on to our consent agenda, which is inclusive of one item, the minutes from our last meeting on February 24th, 2025. I know that there was a correction, a clerical correction, and then an information correction, which was submitted and requested and made. And based on the revised version of the minutes, do we have a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Thank you, Councilman Grassley.
Second.
Thank you, President Carter. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted into the history books unanimously. That brings us to our first item of new business, which is to consider, discuss, and act on the introduction of ordinance number 2025-02, amending Chapter 76, disturbing the peace, Section 76-3, noises, of the town code to regulate noise between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Quick item summary before I turn it over for more background info from staff. This ordinance will add additional language to the town's current noise regulations by adding rules related to sounds generated on public property. And we'll ask Joe for some more info.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, this is building on the noise ordinance that we actually passed in 2021, which regulated noises after 10 p.m. Basically, anything in town that was above a certain level we made a nuisance and was subject to municipal violation. This ordinance will regulate any noise created on public property. So again, we want to make that very clear. So we're talking about public right-of-ways, sidewalks, parks, things like that. It will not regulate anything on private property. So any noise that's emanating from private property between these hours is perfectly fine and reasonable. Like I said, it would create a municipal infraction for these types of things, and the ordinance basically establishes 4 new, let's just say, categories. It's like regulated short-term amplification. So again, we're talking about people that are talking loudly or screaming or amplifying their voice one way or another, either mechanically or just audibly. And that's the way we've defined short-term is basically less than 10 minutes. So if you're doing something or you're creating some sort of noise that's less than 10 minutes long, we consider that basically short-term. Regulating long-term amplification, which is just the opposite of that. It's anything longer than 10 minutes or so. We also establish rules for what at least what I'm starting to call is disruptive practices. So if somebody is using or exercising their First Amendment right, and somebody then stands next to them and just tries to scream over them or create some sort of noise over them, denying them their ability to exercise their First Amendment, then obviously that would also be a municipal infraction. And then finally, there's rules for events themselves. So certain approved events that go through the permitting process would be able to generate amplified noise, again, subject to certain distance requirements we can just use Main Street as the example, but it would be in a park as well. And I think that's around 250 feet is for the 250 feet from the event boundary. So that's the basics of the ordinance. Again, this is we just want to reiterate that it doesn't have anything to do with private property. So again, anybody that's making noise on private property between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. this would not apply. But again, we wanted to introduce it tonight, start some discussion about this particular item. Staff is of course recommending approval of the introduction tonight, and then scheduling the public hearing for our next meeting on March 24th.
Understood. Thank you. I'll begin with Mr. Keenan, do you have any questions for staff?
Just one, actually. Did you frame this ordinance using other town ordinances? How'd you get the language?
Yeah, so admittedly, our town council came up with most of the language, town legal council, sorry.
Thank you.
They come up with most of the language, and again, it is modeled after similar ordinances across the state.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Councilman Grass?
And so where did you come up with the 250 feet, Joe? Is that like,
Yeah, so all the distances that are in here, and really even the time limits, the 10 minutes, those are all subjective. So, we can change some of those. We did look at, where, based on some of the events that we know that happen on Main Street, where would 250 feet lie? So again, if you just use, say, the beer festival as an example, where the stage is set up, where they play music, 250 feet from there would be basically the Sandusky parking lot.
okay.
Or 250 feet would be Norwood Avenue. So, you can kind of get an idea of where you would actually have to stand. And again, this doesn't prohibit you hearing noise from those locations. It's just a matter of, does it drown out normal conversation?
Right.
And normal conversation is actually one of those things that is actually defined as a decibel level, so it's roughly 60 decibels. Would be just us carrying on a conversation. So if that gets drowned out by the noise that's being generated, that's when it would trigger the violation.
So I guess I'm assuming that you're going to have a designated area for every event.
Yeah.
Like if somebody comes to disrupt an event.
Yeah, so we would have to, any event that gets approved, we would actually have to show, because again, it would be dependent on where the event is happening. We would have to know where that 250-foot mark was.
All right. And then is there a limit? Like, do you need, like, let's say there's an event on Main Street and one person comes down with a blowhorn, a speaker, and just walking Main Street. Can we send that person? Will the police be able to send that person to the designated area to not disrupt the event?
No, so again, let's call it the short or long-term provisions that are in here would then apply. So again, as long as that person's not drowning out normal conversation within 25 or 50 feet of that individual. So again, this does not create a situation where you can necessarily separate people. It's only if they're attempting to drown out people that are also attempting to exercise their First Amendment right.
Okay.
So again, it doesn't immediately allow us just to separate people, just
Okay.
because they're wanting to conflict. It's only if like the volume gets to a certain level.
All right. So disruption, basically. So is there any, let's say someone on private property within Main Street decides that they want to disrupt an event. Is there anything that we can do to stop that situation?
To prohibit that?
Well, prohibit that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, people are coming down for an event. They don't want to be like screamed at. They're down there for an event. That's why they're there. Is there anything that we could do?
There's nothing in this ordinance that specifically speaks to that. Now, there are other sections within our noise ordinance that talk about, just loud noises in general. But again, it would be subjective to, the police enforcement or somebody that was there to try to enforce that.
The
As to whether or
property
not.
take action.
Yes. No.
So what I would say to that is, if you think about private property on Main Street, it would generally be a residence, because everything else is private property open to the public in general, right? So
Okay.
So the private entity could bar those people from that establishment, and then we can enforce a trespass issue. The only thing I don't think we could have an enforcement tool is if they were in one of the apartments up above. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what about the reverse? Let's say that the person on the private property is making a lot of noise and drowning out what the public event is trying to do. There's nothing we can do in reference to
The way
that
this is written, I
based
wouldn't
on
think
this
so.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Right, got it.
So, but there is something in the ordinance about.
It's about there is something about, and that's what I'm trying to understand,
So
what we're trying to achieve versus what,
I think
problems we could have with that thing,
Yeah.
And there is something about if it's coming from a private property onto a public.
Yeah, that's hours for
That's
10
10
p.m. to 7 a.m.
That's after 10 p.m., like during quiet hours, if you will, between 10 p.m.
I thought
and
that
7
was-
a.m.
I think it's all. I actually had a visit from a police officer
Okay.
one time when my son was in the backyard playing amplified music.
That's what I was thinking of, because we have
And-
drummers in our neighborhood too. So I was
Well,
thinking-
they were outside playing amplified. It was loud, but I mean, so I mean that is understandable. Like, you know,
Yeah, so there is a catch-all provision, but again, it is, again, when I say it's subjective to the police officers, you know, again, it doesn't mean that, hey, they might enforce it or they might not, but again, it's, just because somebody complains about it doesn't mean it's an actual violation. So it's, you know, I think it's number 4 on the ordinance, and it talks about any other unreasonably loud, disturbing, continuous, irritating, or unnecessary noise, whether emanating from a human, animal, or mechanical feature. So that's any time. So
So
that's,
another example would be a car with an extremely loud, purposefully modified exhaust system who is idling and in neutral.
Have to prove intent.
Well, if they're in one place and they're cranking
Revving
their
So
engine,
this isn't
and
just
revving it.
driving down Main Street.
Well, but in my opinion, it actually would be something that if it's a repetitive, you know.
Well, if they're driving
action-
back and forth, but just
Sure.
one drive down Main Street isn't gonna trigger this, per se.
I would say that if somebody were living on Main Street and were irritated by this every day at the same time, and it's, you know, after 10 and they're in bed and this is a nuisance, then yeah, I think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But or after any hour, at any time, really.
All right, I didn't want to open up the can of worms, but all my questions have been answered. I'm sorry. I just
Well, that's what I'm.
that's why we have to say.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So in the ordinance itself that we're reading, just the underlined words
that's
is
in
what's
there.
being added. The other stuff is already in there.
That's correct.
So that's where I was getting confused, because I was like, it does talk about, but this is from you were saying the 10 p.m. to 7 that's already in there.
From the ordinance passed in 2021, and we're discussing this evening the amendments
Just the
to that.
7, yeah.
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 Do you have any questions, President
I
Carter?
do. So this ordinance is on public roads. In the event that we need milling done on any of our streets, how is that going to be addressed?
So again, there is a section that exempts noises created by police, fire, emergency medical, governmental emergency personnel, or public utility work.
Okay,
So all of that.
so that's in there.
And then, of course, any noise generated by private persons for the purpose of protecting their person or property. So again, if somebody honks their horn because somebody's backing up, that's not a violation.
And that would be under the 10 minutes, so that wouldn't even
Right.
be addressed.
Right.
Well-
Well, and again, this doesn't even matter
Yeah.
about timing.
And all of the police vehicles are equipped with decimal readers?
No, ma'am.
No, but I'm looking into that shortly.
Okay.
You have to
Respect
be
to noise
certified and
levels.
trained on the equipment. This doesn't call for a decibel level though, it's a distance.
Sure.
So 50 feet is about the width of a street. I'd say 25 is about half of that.
That'd be a pretty good guess.
Give or take.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I want to apologize.
Can I add a comment to your question? So how would you actually enforce this? How would you know that it's 250 feet, other than you kind of guesstimate? How would you know it's 25?
If I
or
had a
50?
complaint, I would dutifully try to pace that out somehow or predetermine landmarks. And I would try to be on the excess of that. So if I could find 300 feet away from the I was standing 300 feet away and, you know, whatever. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be really hard for you to actually
Probably.
provide any
The
citation.
50 feet,
ever.
25 feet is pretty easy, but the 250 may be.
Well, and I think that if it's a pre-established
We would have to
event,
establish
a
that
permitted
before.
event, and we know where the boundaries of that event are, then prior to the beginning of that event, those marks would be paced out already.
Yeah, on the existing ordinance, this is what got the band. That there is no time on the existing ordinance under number 3 where it says any
Right.
other unreasonably loud, disturbing, continuous, irritating, or unnecessary noise, whether emanating from a human, animal, or mechanical source.
It was irritating.
I didn't think it was irritating, but you know, so that was
That's the catch-all.
that was because the officer did stop by and I said, hey, this is. I mean, I think it was Saturday afternoon at 1:00, and she pointed to number 3.
but there was no citation.
No, I mean, we stopped.
So, yeah, I know you did.
Yeah.
So, because we've talked about this.
Yes, yes.
But the idea is that it gives the person who has the complaint the opportunity to make a formal complaint, and for the police officer on duty to follow up on that and see if it does meet criteria for a violation and or simply a warning. So again, this is, a lot of our ordinances are more enabling than anything, right? They're enabling legislation that enable the law enforcement officer to act accordingly. And there is a lot of subjectivity involved, but this, I believe, is written in a way that it truly, I think, eliminates subjectivity to the extent possible, because it's pretty plain. It's got times addressed to it. It's got distances. You don't need a certified or a decibel reader that has been, kept up to snuff, and somebody who's certified to use it. It really, this comes down to nuisances, and with respect to those that are rooted in noise.
So can I ask the impacts? In B, there's a lot of comments about the parade, right? So
As an example.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, kind of just how that plays out. So are people in the parade going to be told to be more mindful of how far the sound travels, or is this saying because they're in a parade, they can be louder and
Right, up to
Correct.
250 feet from the right of way.
that's what, so that's different than right now. We don't have anything that's, so technically we might be saying to a band or to a group, like,
But
you
they
got to
would
make
be
sure that it,
They would be strolling, so it's not in one designated area. So they might be loud here, but give them 2 minutes and they'll be not
Well,
loud.
and again, just to be clear, the 250 feet limitation doesn't mean you can't hear the band from 250 feet away. It's that it's not drowning out a normal conversation that somebody could have 250 feet away.
okay.
So again, it's not just, it has to be inaudible 250 feet away, because that would be very difficult for any event.
Right.
It's so loud that 250 feet away from the boundary of the event, I can't have a conversation with somebody sitting next to me, is the intent behind it.
You can't enjoy the event.
Right.
Or enjoy not being at the event
There you go.
and having the event impact you.
Sure.
Here's a question that I have. Most of our municipal infractions require a written warning first before you can take action, so
Yeah.
just clarification on how you would want us to handle that. Does that remain the same?
Well, and again, the ordinance still establishes a municipal infraction. So again, if the practice is to issue a warning first, then we issue a warning first.
Taser second.
I don't see it.
We might. So can we remove that written warning during an event?
Right. I
Yep.
would like to remove that if it's during an event.
Agreed.
And I'm assuming that's just a practice. That's just what
It's generally written in most of our code that
your standard operating procedures.
what's in the town code that it's a written warning first.
Okay.
Is that for only certain levels of citations?
Every single municipal
Infractions, I
infraction.
need to say?
So they break them down in the
Classes.
classes, and
Right.
every one that I've written that tends to do with law enforcement is a written warning first.
That would surprise me for the highest level or the highest degree of penalty, and therefore the most severe infractions that a warning would be.
Well, again, this establishes, any violation of this particular section, not just what we're talking about here, is a Class B
Right,
municipal infraction. So it's a $100 fine.
And
right,
then it moves up from there.
Right.
right.
Here's the other thing. Nowhere in this can we make it necessarily stop after we've enforced it.
I'm not sure I understand what that means,
So we can write a
It's
citation.
only a municipal infraction.
right?
So you
We
write
can write a
ticket.
citation, and we can stand there and write 3, but we can't necessarily.
Fair enough.
Don't have teeth to make it stop.
They could just keep on going.
It's not
And
a
just keep getting
jailable
tickets.
offense. Yeah.
Understood.
Just becomes a really expensive event.
Yeah.
Or
For
they
that.
cannot pay it. I have a question. I don't see the 10-minute duration in here. Did I miss it?
It's under 3B.
3B.
It's the last sentence, and continuing for a period of more than 10 minutes.
Oh, I was looking for an actual number, not the. Okay.
your scanning device
Yes.
wasn't set to new
Because I'm seeing all these
letters.
numbers and I didn't see a 10.
Mhm.
Okay. So with me and my loud vehicle in the morning at 6:30 in the morning, keeping it in my driveway to warm up the vehicle less than 10 minutes, I'll be fine.
Even if it was more than 10 minutes, it's on private property.
Property.
Well, wait, you said 6:30. That's the
Exactly.
previous.
Exactly. So that's like less than, I'll have to go out and time it then.
No, it's
Right.
more.
So just
it's
put it
more
on the
chocolate
main
chip.
street at 7 a.m. Just pull it out of your driveway, warm it up on the street at 7 a.m. and then you're good.
No, that would be a violation. It's on the public roads.
Wait till 7 o'clock before you start your car.
So, hey,
Just make more limoncello for your neighbors, that's all.
That'll.
so, where did the 10 minutes come from? Was that just a general?
It's subjective. Yeah, that was
Like-
something that we decided that was, if somebody is protesting on Main Street or exercising their First Amendment right, that's if they're going to be doing that, usually it's longer than 10 minutes. So it's like we kind of want to differentiate between, a delivery truck that might be sitting on Main Street. Usually they're there for 10 minutes or less. But then there's longer term things that can happen. And that was kind of the dividing line. Now again, that could be adjusted one way or another, or we can make it 30 minutes. It's like it's really just a point of preference.
Right. I mean, I think that should be decreased if it's a disruptive down on Main Street. 10 minutes is a long time if you're trying to enjoy an event. I don't know how we would do that, but
You tell me to change it in the ordinance.
well, I mean,
No, I hear you.
you know what I'm saying? Like if we pay $50, for instance, to go down to the beer festival, and somebody is there screaming obscenities, let's say, for 10 minutes, that's enough to make you to leave, I think.
Well, I mean, or I'll take it a step further. It's a free event, and you're there with your child, and they're being accosted and told them their parents are being told they're going to hell. I mean, you can look at this any way.
Yes, yeah.
And so I agree with you. Like if it's an amplified situation, I mean, we can't stop people from, cursing them to hell, but we can certainly, if there's an amplified, prolonged, and whatever prolonged means, we need to decide if it should be less than 10 or not. But I agree with you.
Can I ask a question in reference to that, though? Isn't that covered under A1, where we talk about uttering in a public place, including in or on the premises of any place of business, open to the general public, any lewd or obscene words, or lewd or obscene epithets in the presence of a hearing of another to whom such conduct is unwelcome? If a person was shouting obscenities to anyone for any
reason.
period of time beyond them considering it to be a lewd or obscene gesture based on our current language, doesn't it cover it there? And do we need
Should.
to have?
That would be it.
So I'll say this: that particular section is pulled directly from Supreme Court language, and the Supreme Court language is extremely vague as to how that is actually enforced. So again, what you consider obscene or lewd might not necessarily be what somebody else considers.
Yes, I'm much more on the forgiving side of lewd, probably.
Well, again, that's why it's extremely difficult to actually enforce that section. We say it because, and this is actually straight from the Supreme Court, is you know it when you see it.
I was going to say, I heard a Supreme Court justice couldn't define it.
And
I'll know it when I see it, whatever that
it's
meant.
extremely difficult to enforce that and actually make anything stick from that particular section. But we
It's
have
still
that not
protected
only.
speech, so the difficulty is, I mean, for the amplification part, sure, we could take enforcement action there, but we can't make them stop, and it's protected speech.
So in this case, a use case, and it's gonna sound bizarre, but someone could sit there and whisper these lewd comments, right, and like the person's having a thing, and like just whisper in their ear and keep telling them over and over again,
Can't do
and
anything.
you couldn't do anything about that
That's
based
the-
on this ordinance.
Well, you can't at all. You can't do anything anyway. That's the issue we have. It's protected speech.
So then I guess the struggle I have with the extra language is I don't know what the problem is that we're trying to solve necessarily. I know we had an incident that was a horrible incident that happened at an event, and I presume that this was related to that. Maybe it's broader. Are we trying to Are we trying to make sure that an event like that doesn't happen again with this clarification of language? Is that our goal? So that someone can't stand across the street and holler obscenities at children or other citizens in our town, or what have you?
At least not within these guidelines, yes.
Right.
Well,
That's correct.
well, again, just to be clear, this ordinance regulates volume.
Right.
That's it.
And so they could stand across the hallway and
Yes.
speak as I am right now,
Right.
and be as lewd as they want to be. That makes it weird to me about then is there any way, and I know I had problems with this last time when we brought this up, but is there any way to strengthen the language of A1 to make it so that there is a bit more teeth in there without taking away the ability for someone to actually have a permitted protest where they can actually have maybe they want to raise an issue because they want to raise an issue in the community about whatever, right? So my kid, who just happens to be in the audience today, likes to go to these types of events, has been to several over the last several weeks, and I can only imagine the things that she's heard there. But it's one of those things that, like, I'm not against that, right? I'd like people to have the opportunity to speak up for whatever they want to be able to speak up in behalf, but not having that interference.
That's
back.
what we're looking at. That's what this is about, right? This isn't a permitted protest.
Right.
Literally permitted.
Right. Oh, right.
Protest that we're trying to stifle.
Right.
That's a separate issue altogether, where I believe that we need to
A peaceful protest, I mentioned that.
really we really need to have a policy where there is an area for that permitted, not like if somebody just shows up and it's not been previously permitted, there has to be a place for us to make sure that's happening in a safe place and without the amplification, obviously. But that is something separate from what we're talking about here. A peaceful protest is I would think one that doesn't become a nuisance for those attending an event and or the people within a certain distance, whether it's in their home or somewhere in the public within that distance that they're hearing.
I had mentioned to Joe earlier, if we can draft up an ordinance on peaceful protest where you come up with criteria, you have to be permitted, you have to know what you're protesting ahead of time, maybe designated areas, I don't know, maybe this to me is broad, and I'm hoping that it doesn't eliminate something that you're not thinking of today that might happen in the future and somebody might get fined or whatever. You don't know until something happens that you don't think about it, but I definitely feel that we should have an ordinance on what a peaceful protest is and how it should be conducted. And here are the guidelines. If this is what you want, we need to get it approved, and then it would just be vetted out.
I don't think you can do
You
that.
can't do that.
You
You
can't
can't.
do?
No.
It's constitutionally protected right.
Yeah, you
Well,
can't,
right, I agree
you
with
can't-
that. That's the point there.
Yeah, you can't, anytime somebody wants to protest something, require them to have a permit to do that.
No, but there can be a policy in place that establishes best practices with respect to where that protest can take place
Actually,
on what public
no.
property
No.
you're offering to them.
No?
Nope.
You can't do that.
Yeah, so it's like, if it's public space, it's public, and that's it. I mean, there's no, oh, well, over here is okay for protesting, but over here is not, unless it poses some sort of risk to public safety, like it's distracting to people on the road or something like that. Then yes, there's certain limitations that we can do it, but those are very narrowly.
That'd be the difference between like being in the crosswalk versus being on the sidewalk
Right.
Yeah.
for an extended period of time. Like unsafe
I
to
would
be in the
think so.
crosswalk for an extended period of time, but you can be on the sidewalk.
If the issue is just amplification, then make that a requirement to be permitted. And you could probably take a bite of that apple one time, because the next time they'll come and get a permit, then you have to allow them to do it. You can't deny a permit because you don't agree that they have amplification. It'll happen, like it'll work once, but then after that, if you deny it, then
Right, which is why we're addressing the nuisance of it.
Yeah,
And not the speech part of it.
I understand this. I'm just, fearful that something may pop up in the future that we're not thinking about today that has nothing to do with the protest or anything that we're not addressing or that we're not thinking about? That's all. And if we do, then I guess we'll address it at that time.
That's what I was gonna say, is that this is an attempt, I think, of us trying to strengthen a policy around, based on something that happened that apparently wasn't covered or was not necessarily clear. And I still find that to be, that's just hard for me to accept that it wasn't clear based on what happened in that particular event, that it didn't fall under A1. But that said, so could I ask one other sort of use case? So let's say that you have the skate park has got a person that's bought time underneath the canopy.
Pavilion.
Is that considered to be a permitted use? And would they then be able to have a big birthday party and be able to blast whatever they want for a period of time, or?
No. So again, just because you rent a pavilion doesn't mean you get to disrupt the entire park for everyone else in the park. Again, this section would still apply. That the distance requirements would still have to be adhered to.
But they could have a quiet KKK rally in there as long as they were under certain.
Certainly can. Now, would the skate park revert to Howard County's ordinances and such?
And maybe that was a bad choice. We just move it up to Miller Cooper Park to make it in the town.
The houses are closer.
I'm trying to bring it back because it's the place is less important.
Yeah, even just to make the clarification, because we're the ones that manage South Branch Park, I would say it would be our rules that would apply.
So, Mark, we haven't heard from you yet, Councilman.
First of all, let me say, I understand this is a response to something that was done that was terrible. But as an engineer, it's called the law of unintended consequence. I'm going to fix this problem, and I'm going to break something over here. In computer science, we describe it as nailing a warped board down. I've nailed this side, and the other side pops up. What I'm worried about is we're going to do something that solves a problem and creates another one. And I was actually going to use that very example. We're walking down the street, and all of a sudden, a bunch of guys wearing sheets carrying the Confederate naval ensign, also known as the Stars and Bars, starts waving it. And we go, "You guys are stupid. Get out of our town. We don't believe in you." Is he going to, "Oh, Mr. Dyer, here's your citation for screaming at that guy"? I'm a free speech absolutist. Are you aware that General Eisenhower, when he was president of Colombia, allowed a bunch of communists to come and speak? And everybody went crazy. And you know what his comment was? I'm not afraid to let them talk because I know we're better than that. We will win this argument. I'm worried that we're going to build something to solve a problem that was terrible, that's going to break something else, and that you're going to be confronted with something. And that's when I was shaking my head, no, you can't. I know you cannot solve all the problems. We're going to have to do the best we can here. And I'm worried, as a free speech absolutist, I'm worried about that we're going to deny something that later we're going to go, "Oh, Anna was right. This is exactly what she was talking about. This happened now, and we're stuck with this." And unfortunately, I know you're doing the best you can. I'm not pointing fingers. God love you, I know you're doing the best possible, but I worry about that. And I do have a point for you that decibels being a logarithmic thing, it follows the inverse square law. I know, you never heard. Here's a quote I want you to remember. You double the distance, it dropped by 6 decibels. So if we're talking 250 feet, that thing's got to be screaming loud, and I would agree. Because if you're 250 feet away and you still can't hear what's going on, it's a wonder it doesn't shake itself loose. So that's another matter. But going back to my original point, I'm worried that we're going to solve a problem and cause 2 more. And I'm, being a free speech absolutist, I'm terrified. And I'll end with this comment. I always tell people, you should try to read Mein Kampf. And they go, "What?" I go, "The guy was crazy, and it's bad literature." I always tell people, read that garbage, and you'll realize how crazy Hitler was. I'm not afraid to let his garbage be put out there. I'm not afraid to let your daughter read it because she's an intelligent young woman and she'll go, "Mom, this guy's nuts." Exactly.
Councilman, this isn't about what the content of what anyone is saying. This is not about.
No, I
free
know,
speech.
but you see what I'm saying?
It actually is about free speech in the reverse, because it's about getting in the way and being a nuisance to someone else who has already begun to or is attempting to also practice their First Amendment.
I understand that's our intent, and I agree with
Okay.
you. I'm worried about the unintended consequence of saying, we've solved this problem, we've limited it so you can do your job and we all feel good about it, and we're all happy, and then a year later when the plan shows up and we start yelling at them, we all get citations and we all go,
Well,
really
first
sad."
of all, there'd have to be a complaint and or a police there for that action to happen and to be known for a citation to occur. And only would a citation occur in a situation like that is if you were able to create, you happen to be walking around with something to elevate your voice to a level that it would meet these things. I understand it's just an example, but I also know that if we don't give sound examples as rationale or justification for the decisions that we're making, there's no point in attempting to justify it.
I agree, but you see what I'm getting at? We're already
don't.
we're already in, when you start saying I'm gonna limit something, you know.
Noise, though. We're talking about noise. We're not talking about
noise.
free speech.
Yes, I know.
I think we're concentrated a little too much on the people who will come down here. They came down here to disrupt
Right. They
an
were
event on Main Street,
Bad
and we had
things.
no recourse.
Agreed.
This would be a recourse of the noise, not of what they're saying.
You see what I'm getting at, though?
I understand what you're
I'm
getting
worried
at.
about I'm worried that we're gonna try to do the right thing and do the wrong thing, and I don't know how to make it perfect.
Well, so here's where I'm stuck in what Jeremiah, what you were saying is, how do we not already have something that prevents people from saying inappropriate things? I mean,
It's free speech,
Or-
you can't.
Because it's free speech. You cannot.
but you also can't yell fire in a, you know, in a
Different.
crowded,
It's different.
Yep.
so you can offend, harm
Correct.
children.
Yep.
Yep.
Even if it's hate speech, it's still protected.
As a governmental entity, that's literally the definition of the First Amendment.
It is my job to protect those folks than it is to try to stop them under the Constitution.
So as a parent then, my recourse is to what? So I'm walking down the street with my children and someone comes at them and says something that I'm not comfortable with. If I step into a store and they follow me into the store, am I now in a public or private?
Private, open to the public, but they're allowed to be there too.
But if they follow me in,
Then you've got other recourse for
Just
harassment.
ignore
But that's- but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. You can ignore them and just keep walking by them and not pay them any attention.
but if they corner us into.
You call the
a
police
store-
and you've got a criminal
different.
harassment charge.
Because we've now stepped into the store.
No, it doesn't matter where, it could be in the public too, but there's, you're talking about action versus speech.
Yeah.
You're focused too much on the speech part of it, about what they're saying and how it could offend you. That's different than them cornering you in some place.
I looked it up. Clear and present danger is the phrase they use. If I yell fire, we can crush you because a bunch of us run over you. If I say something that he disagrees with politically, he's not going to run over Anna. He's going to go, I don't agree. And that's, I think, why, as you said, yelling fire, he can go over there and say, you're under arrest for trying to, you were trying to incite a riot. People could die. But if I say something to him that you may agree with, a political discussion among friends, I don't agree with you. He's got nothing to do with it because he can say, Mark, I disagree. It's the danger involved of yelling fire. But again, I'm only worried about, I know what we're trying to do and I support that concept. I'm just saying we need to be very, very careful that we don't create a weapon that will come back to haunt us.
So
So, wait a minute, let me stop here, because my whole pause on this was not about speech or anything like that. I'm just thinking of a future event that we're not, you address the roads, tree cutting, that's the things that I were thinking about. However, this is a ordinance misdemeanor. Is it a misdemeanor?
It's a municipal infraction.
It's a municipal infraction. So if something happens, it's not that they're gonna get hauled away to jail. They're gonna get an infraction,
Maybe, if they decide they want to identify themselves, which they
So-
probably won't.
something that may not be addressed here. The worst that they're gonna get is yelled at. Okay, and then we can address it saying, oh, we forgot about that, and then we can address it.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned the IDing, Lieutenant. When you pull somebody over for an obvious traffic violation and you ask for their license and registration, do they always, what happens if they don't give that to you?
So they're bound by Transportation Order 26202. It says that when you're stopped for an infraction, you must identify. If they refuse, then the ramification could be that they're taken to jail. But that's a misdemeanor. That's actually a crime. This is a civil offense. And you can't force somebody to identify for something civil, if I understand that right. So then it turns into a big contest of who's braver than who. That's going to ultimately lead us nowhere. And that would be my, I think that's how it would probably progress. So when I dealt with the gentleman on Main Street at the Pride event, I asked him his name, and you can just call me whatever, and I cannot forcibly make him identify. I can't, because he's just a person walking. He's not subject to a crime. This is technically not necessarily a crime either, so I can't forcibly make them ID.
Thank you.
So what we're hoping, based on what you said, the likelihood that an infraction would actually occur, low, but what would happen with this is it would give you the ability to engage.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, actually could have a conversation,
Right,
but I'm like, hey, I need your driver's license so I can write you this ticket. I don't have to tell you who I am.
okay.
And he's right. Or she's right.
Yeah.
So then what does this do to help us stop that?
I guess it depends who's approaching the individual who's violating or the source of the complaint by another person. I mean,
Because we want to stop it, right?
I mean,
We're trying
why do we have
to,
ordinances? Like, if we're gonna have that theoretical conversation.
We're trying to
like-
keep the noise down.
Exactly.
That's it.
I know, I'm reading it, shouting or making other
That's it.
vocalizations, amplified sound. I agree, Joe, that's all it is.
That's the intent of this ordinance. You're trying to keep the noise down. You're trying to allow people to be able to enjoy the public spaces and not get overwhelmed by somebody with a bullhorn drowning out, just the normal sounds of a downtown.
No, obviously I would approach it like, hey, appreciate what you're doing, but just gotta quiet down a little bit.
But dependent upon a particular ordinance that requires you to not be mechanically amplifying your sound.
I could ask, and hopefully they would listen. I mean, obviously we would do that with all the best intentions. I'll put on my kinder, gentler face and go over there and have a nice conversation.
And without this, you couldn't even approach them.
Not about that.
Right.
Right, that's the willingness to engage,
Correct.
right? So you can at least go up, have the conversation, and say, hey, we've got an ordinance in the town that you need to just calm it down a little bit.
You have to turn off the amplifier.
Or turn it down.
Turn it down,
So what exactly are we looking for here?
So at this point, thank you. At this point, we're looking for one of two things to happen first. It's either you guys are ready to make a motion to schedule a public hearing, approve the introduction as it's written, or you're not, and you want to suggest changes to staff for the verbiage that we reviewed this evening.
I'd like to suggest two changes. 3B, down to 5 minutes instead of 10. And maybe adding some wordage that if a sanctioned Main Street event is going on, there will be no, written warning is not needed. Or I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right, infraction enforcement it should be conducted without the obligation of a written warning.
is that for just the daytime stuff, or is that the evening stuff as well?
It would-
That like across the board for this will move?
it would say a
As the written-
sanctioned event on Main Street.
Right.
Okay.
to remove the written warning.
Can we say in public property? So
All of this is public.
versus Main Street, like because we
Oh,
have
yeah.
events.
No, he's just
that
giving
are-
that an example. I mean, they've got sanctioned events that don't always happen. They happen in the park sometimes.
Right,
They
that's what I'm
happen-
saying. Yeah, can
Yeah.
we just say a sanctioned event versus on
Copy.
the street? That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Would that be adding language to section B then? Or would you put it somewhere else, Joe?
I honestly don't know yet because actually I just want to look at the municipal infraction section just to see if that's written in there. And obviously if that is specific language that's in another ordinance, then we'd have to strike that somewhere else.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else with any other modifications or adjustments that?
My car doesn't warm up in 5 minutes.
It's on private property.
Somebody said no, I have to put it on the street.
So I'll make a
Only
motion
before
to
7 a.m.
introduce ordinance 2025-02 with the suggested modifications.
Thank you. And to schedule.
Oh, I'm sorry, and
That's
to
okay.
schedule a public hearing.
Great. And adoption for what date?
Second.
March 24th. Okay. So the motion is made with assistance from the mayor by Councilman Grassley.
I'll second that.
Thank you, President Carter. Any further debate or discussion necessary before I call for the vote? Okay, so the motion is to approve the introduction of ordinance 2025-02 as presented and to schedule a public hearing, with the, as presented with the additional modifications, and to schedule a public hearing and adoption for March 24th, 2025. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed, so that brings us to a 6-1 passing of the motion to introduce this ordinance. And that brings us to item number 2 on the list of new business, which is to consider, discuss, and act on a proclamation for Women's History Month. I'm going to take the opportunity now to read the proclamation, and then we'll have a discussion following that. Women's History Month proclamation is as follows. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our town and our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and societal roles in every sphere of life, of the town and of the nation by constituting a significant portion of labor force working inside and outside of the home. And whereas women have played a unique role throughout the history of the town and the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. And whereas women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions. And whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement. And whereas women have served our country courageously in the military. And whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas, despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and Town Council of the Town of Sykesville that the month of March 2025 is designated as Women's History Month. Is there any need for a discussion?
I'd just like to say, as I mentioned last week, I think like highlighting the differences in this way kind of hinders our goal of inclusion in this town. So I'll be exercising my free speech rights and opposing this.
Okay. Any need for any further discussion or comment?
I have a comment.
Thank you.
So, my wife recently posted something. So, one of the things that she's involved with is an organization, it's a nonprofit to help caregivers, and most caregivers are women. She posted something very recently on LinkedIn that talks about some statistics where the statistics came from the UK, okay, not from the US, so I want to clarify that. But a lot of the statistics are very similar here. 51 women are 51% of the population, but 70% of the poor, and 83% of single parents, doing 66% of the work, producing 50% of the food, but earn just 11% of the pay and only own 1% of the land. And in my humble opinion, having a proclamation about women to raise up a voice for them is something that's very important to me as a father of two girls that are trying to pursue their dreams. And so, I want to, I want, like, just how you had freedom of speech to say that it doesn't have inclusion. I actually find that there's a tremendous amount of inclusivity by honoring the diversity of all the different things that all of us bring to the table. And one of the things that women bring to the table, in my humble opinion, and all the heroes in my life are women. I was raised by a single mom, and I'm emotional about it. Is that, like, they're fighters, they push through things, they work their asses off, and pardon my French, but they do, and it means something to me personally to stand in the gap for them. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
No, very well said, Jeremiah. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to adopt the Women's History Month proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So the motion is made by Councilman Dyer and seconded by Councilman Keenan. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion passes 6-1. So we'll move on to our announcements and reports. The next meeting is Monday, March 24th, 2025. We have volunteer opportunities available as a crossing guard, on the police auxiliary, and at least momentarily for now, on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm pleased to announce that I've met with a wonderful candidate, and hopefully we'll fill that BZA vacancy with a plan to appoint at our next meeting. Anyone interested in any of these volunteer opportunities, please do email town@sykesville.net. Thank you. That brings us to our staff updates, and I'll ask Joe for those.
Mayor, if you don't mind, if we could do the treasurer's report first.
Absolutely.
Our treasurer has a very special guest in the audience.
See that,
and
so-
I know they want to leave as soon as you leave.
Today's her birthday.
Fantastic. So let's start with the treasurer's report and ask our treasurer Jen to the podium, and she can formally introduce the birthday girl.
This is Macy.
Welcome,
She's officially 13 as
All right,
of
all right.
158 today. She was
Oh
8
my
pounds and 1 ounce.
So that went a little above and beyond what I asked your mother to do, Macy, so don't hold me accountable for that. But happy 13th birthday. Welcome to your teen years. All right.
So I'm here to present this month's February 2025 Treasurer's Report. This month we actually received income tax revenue of $260,000, and then also, a great surprise, we received a reimbursement for our health insurance of $67,000, which far exceeds.
Almost 3 times, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was super. Also, I want to make a note that some of the percentages on the income statement didn't carry over right. So I have them fixed already. So I guess I'll submit them to Carrie to go and update and resubmit them.
Okay. Thank you.
And then as far as our expenses, we had Herman Restoration finish the windows and, Herman Restoration, that was Hector did that. Herman Restoration did finish the second phase of the scale house.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hector finished the repairing and painting of the windows, the shutters for our townhouse. And then the last big expense that we had was for KCI, which was 7 months of engineering for the South End Streetscape project. So other than that, that's.
And that only took us 10 months of asking for a invoice from them, so that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. Well, I didn't want to give it to them either. Any questions for the treasurer?
Was it just that one area where the percentages were off?
Yeah, it was towards the
It
beginning.
was 621%. I'm like, I think that's off a little bit.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
just a teeny off. Yeah, it's so the former treasurer, he believed everybody liked the font, so it was literally going and taking it out of QuickBooks, then copy and pasting every single figure into there, and then so next month it's going to look a little different.
That's right. We don't, the faster you can take it out of QuickBooks and get it in would be fine.
I don't think any of us care about the font.
I would agree.
As long as the point is large enough for our 50-plus-year-old eyes at the table.
Agreed.
Which I can safely say now about all of us.
We can,
size
Not
doesn't
me.
matter.
Well, because you always wear your readers.
I'm sorry, President Carter.
no, I was just gonna say, I can enlarge,
Okay,
so pick
very
your
good.
font.
Very good. Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Appreciate you, Jen. Happy birthday, Macy. All right, you're free to go.
We'll have to eat local.
Enjoy. I love
For
that.
your birthday.
Fantastic. So Joe, we'll jump back to you.
Speaking of the streetscape project, so this is obviously something that's been a long time coming. It does look like next week is going to be the week that they're going to start mobilizing. So again, good to see that project finally kick off. I did send a brief update to the merchants downtown. Well, I shouldn't say I sent it to the merchants. I sent it to the merchant liaison, who then sent it to all the merchants downtown to kind of give them a brief description of what's going to be happening down there. We'll start to put things on our website just to make sure the plans are out there and everybody kind of knows what's going to be happening. When the parking lot is scheduled to be closed, because again, the Baldwin lot is going to be shut down for a good 2-month period of this. We are going to open the Public Works Yard up on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So again, I'm going to thank Brandon Smith,
Yes.
in case he's watching. He was the one that mentioned it to me at the last Planning Commission meeting that, hey, if we can do that, that would be a good idea.
I saw that.
Derek was,
Saw that when I watched the Planning Commission meeting.
oh, like that,
I'm sorry.
live stream.
Live stream, that's right.
So again, basically every Friday, when the Public Works employees are done, they'll rearrange the vehicles and make sure that it's open for the weekends, once the lot is closed.
Copy.
I don't know if that's specifically going to happen on Monday, but it'll be next week. So
And we can have a temporary sign pointing up the hill, additional parking.
we can do that.
Let's do that.
Basically, what we'll actually ask people is, it's kind of a goofy parking lot when it is open. So it's like we like it when the merchants themselves or
Okay.
people that are used to being downtown park up there rather than just regular visitors. Let's put it
Sure,
that way. So
sure.
we want to keep those spots open where the parking lot's actually.
And Dana Gendrick's aware of that's what we would like to see is the merchants and
We'll make that
employees.
clarification.
Very good, thank you.
Joe, when the Baldwin Station lot is gonna be closed for construction, how is that gonna affect the construction of the station?
Oh, they know, and it probably won't. But if it does, obviously they'll be able to be in, like their contractors are able to go in. And if
Okay.
they have work to do in the building, they'll be able to do that.
Okay, just making sure that we have accommodations for that.
Yeah. Luckily, most of the work that's going to happen in the lot itself are, I think there's one concrete island, there's a sidewalk that's obviously going to be to establish the difference between the road and the parking lot, and then everything else is just repaving. So again, there's not a lot of significant construction that's going to be happening in the lot itself. So
They'll be using that for staging as well, though, for the rest of the work.
a little bit, they're going to use some of that, and some of the. I think they're trying to work out an arrangement with Farm and Home as well to put some of the materials there. So again, that's a big project. It's been a long time coming. So next week we'll start to see dirt moving.
That was a great tee up for my question.
Okay, excellent.
Can you remind the public how long we've been planning to accomplish this particular, and this is not a slight, this is
Oh,
just,
no, I know.
this is something that like a lot of effort has gone into like thinking through how we would go about this process. Can you remind us?
So we actually at our staff meeting today, our planner just gave kind of not really an update on our comprehensive plan, but just kind of reminding staff that hey, we do have this comprehensive plan and it's been adopted for 4 years now. I still remember in one of the first public sessions when we were doing our comprehensive plan in 2020, where we were looking for ways to improve areas around Main Street. This South End streetscape was one of the first things that was drawn. So this was probably mid to late 2020 is when we first wrote that out. And then it's been basically under engineering the entire time after that. So it's been a good 2 years of an engineering process, and now we're finally able to start to see
It just so happens to follow a very arduous process with the state highways and with the county
Yeah,
on 851.
more state than county. But
More state than county. That's right, it's fair to say that.
That makes it worse then.
Yeah, it does. It does. So anyway, thank you for that. That's very important for the public to be aware.
And it just shows like You know, sometimes when we're thinking about projects, we don't think about what's gonna happen 2 months from now or 4 months from now. Sometimes we literally are thinking 5 years or more and trying to better the community in ways that we can, because it's hard to get funding. It's hard to get all this stuff all figured out. It takes a lot of time to do it right. It takes some community engagement in order to do it right. And then multiple different entities are involved in the process as well in order to have the projects done. And so I think it's just good for people to understand the complexities around doing something like a streetscape project, right? Like you think it's not as complicated, it's gonna get done in like 2-3 months probably.
Not a chance.
No, and so again, we plead for residential patients.
That's right.
And I mean, this is a generational improvement that's about to
That's right.
happen. And
Yeah, this is what I've been telling most folks is these are improvements you're going to see. You know, it's like, you know, we needed new water lines and we needed rehabilitated sewer lines, but once they're done the work, you can't really see that anymore. This is something that is going to change the face of this, at least the south end, forever. So that's good.
So I'm sure you're planning this, but can we have more than one sign up about the temporary parking and maybe put a map on the Sykesville webpage and Sykesville Facebook page when it is closed, so people.
speaking of signs and parking, can we communicate with, I'm asking staff to communicate with the church. They've been using a cone with a sign pushed in it, and that sign that says parking for church only.
You're about St. Paul's.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes. And I'd really appreciate maybe them partnering with us to come up with a more permanent and less unsightly and functional way to communicate the parking parameters for their lot.
Certainly.
Thank you, because the wind just keeps blowing it over and
Okay.
I keep standing it back up. Thank you.
Speaking of no parking signs, this is really just a, I guess, public service announcement. So we did put no parking signs along Oklahoma Avenue towards 2nd Avenue. So again, that end, we had just striped that, but people were still parking along the roadway and requiring people to go around parked cars, blocking a lane. So the no parking signs did go up, and I believe the cars did move after that happened. So
Thank you.
just something to keep in mind that we are working that progress, or
Thank
that
you.
problem. And then the last thing I had is just a reminder, and mainly I wanted to say it out loud because I keep forgetting to do this, seems like every year, but ethics forms are going to be going out very shortly. I want to make sure that the council knows that so that I actually send them to you to fill out this year.
Fantastic.
Mayor, if I may, just one more reminder that candidacy filing forms are due by noon on March 24th.
Did you hear that, Grassley?
I did that, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Clerk. Any other updates or announcements you'd like to make, Carrie?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you're good, Joe?
Yes.
Thank you.
What's the status of Springfield while you're doing it?
It's still, it looks like April they're targeting for paving. The contractors are still out there for, to do like their odds and ends. I saw them out there today doing some work. So it's like, I know they're at least on site doing something. But yeah, I think April, and I would just say, might as well just say the end of April for paving.
Okay.
And what happened to the discussion about the broken sidewalk?
I'll have to follow up with them on that.
And along those lines, the bracing that's being used to hold up some of those really beefy poles on Springfield, is the bracing going away once?
Once it's done, the
Right.
bracing will go away.
Right.
So anytime they're doing any excavation near any of those poles,
Yep.
they have to have that
Yep.
bracing.
So, but it's not, it's temporary.
It's not permanent.
Right, thank you. Okay, that brings us to our public safety report. I'll ask Lieutenant Kilgore to join us at the microphone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about the public safety report for the dates of February 18th through March the 2nd. As a department, we handled 424 total incidents during that time. Some of the highlights are 11 assist other agencies, 16 community policing initiatives, 22 patrol checks. I lost my spot. 217 patrol checks. We had only one suspicious person, that's good. 28 traffic enforcement initiatives, Sergeant Slareth is trying to secure us the PAC grant, and as a part of that process, we were deemed to have to take trainings in de-escalation and things of that sort. So he put together a couple classes for us as the department to take, and everybody has done that. So we can move forward with the grant that he's trying to secure us. And we had one vehicle search consent and one welfare check. Outside of that, does anybody have any questions?
I appreciate the details in response
Yes,
to
so
Councilman
would you like me to address that publicly? Or?
It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. It might be, I mean,
Okay.
I think I was telling him I was kind of worried that there was a whole bunch of people in there, but it's
No,
just
single suspect did a flim flam theft there. Asked for a carton of cigarettes, then asked for a second carton of cigarettes, and then asked for a pack of Winstons. And when he turned to grab that pack of cigarettes, he did the old cigarette grab and dash. Hopped into his car, and he parked it in such a way that the rear tag was not visible. We took a report and then gave that to Detective Sergeant Lacey, who is at it like a rabid dog, and he is chasing down leads. He reached out to his vast network of investigators. We put a bolo out through the email through that the group that he is involved in. We did have one Facebook lead of a lady that lives in the area that could be a decent one. We'll have to try to track that down, but we're waiting on some information from Virginia DMV to get some vehicle information. But we determined that the vehicle was a 2017 Nissan with Virginia tags, no front tag in that. And part and parcel to this whole thing, the vehicle went down Sandusky Road and south on Main Street, and I would say that the cameras did not do a good job at getting a decent shot of the tag number there. So unfortunately, they were a little inadequate in that regard, but it did give us a path of travel and a decent shot of what the car was, but no tag number.
Now, if there was only AI tied to our cameras,
Thinking.
so that a bolo could go out for any color of any car model with that color, yeah.
So we have the ability to look through certain programs, and the one thing is links, and he did a search for this kind of theft in counties around us, and nothing came back, but through his investigations, he was able to determine it's Virginia. So now we have a request in for all Nissan vehicles 2017 Virginia tags with Maryland registered owners, and we're hoping that will do the trick.
Yeah, I read something coincidentally, and I'm sure this isn't news to you, Lieutenant. I read just last weekend over coffee about there being some crazy number of Virginia tags, particularly in Baltimore City, residents' car ownerships.
And they're able to get around Maryland fines and fees if they register out of state. So hopefully they'll crack down on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to comment on the community policing. Usually, Council President Anna over here always beats me to it, but I did want
It's because you started it and you weren't here, so I took
it. But I did notice it, and I also noticed that the Fireside Creamery is still a popular place. But what I particularly appreciate...
Have you had the milkshakes there?
Yeah. It is
I wonder why it's always that place.
Yeah.
And so, but I like that, you're continuing to put
Blueberry cupcake. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the pie's pretty good too. So I'll throw that down. Not that I know that from firsthand experience.
Right, you've been told.
Yeah, I've been told. I've been told.
I saw a Facebook post.
Right.
Lieutenant, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Sergeant Lacey is assisting with Carroll County in a significant theft.
So here is what happened, and if you know Detective Sergeant Lacey, you'll know. So he's a part of an investigators group that will put out a picture of a person. And if he doesn't have anything else to do, he will find something to do. And what he did in this case in particular, and I knew you were going to ask me that, so I took notes. He took that picture and did Sergeant Lacey things, found out who the person was, and then said, "Here's your guy." Basically is how that happened. We didn't necessarily have any interest in it. It didn't affect us in one way or another, but being a good investigator to help other investigators, and that's just what he does.
Okay.
So there were a lot of those kind of cases last year. because I'm working on his like evaluation and other things, and he like closed the cold case rate by doing that with a picture and found the guy, and there you go, there's your guy. So it's just a day work for Sergeant Lacey.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
other questions? You have more for us?
No,
You all set? Okay, thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
I don't think I have any more.
No, I don't need any more. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't sending you away and you know.
Prematurely.
I'll give you another minute to look at my mustache and that.
Yeah, it's something to look at, that is for sure.
Not bad, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant. So that brings us to council and/or commission liaison updates. Anyone?
So we did have a planning commission last Monday, and the topic of the night for almost an hour was in reference to an applicant from Warfield and their interest in placing an assistant living facility on parcel B. And the bottom line up front is that we did move forward with a recommendation to move that initiative forward. At least 3 of the planning commission folks mentioned that this was the best proposal that they had seen come in.
It's the only one.
It's
And therefore the best.
well, I mean, what was mentioned in the meeting, if you watched the playback
I did.
or if you were there live streaming, we talked about a Wawa and a couple of other things that are like that. And so this type of facility is perhaps a better use case. I did go on and on
You did?
and on in reference to trying to get a little bit of a vision of what they're trying to do. And Mr. McLeaf was in the audience, and Mr. Bowersox was at the podium, and they continued to say again and again that it's very hard for them to predict the future. And I expressed our interest as a town that it would be very helpful if they would give us some sort of a vision, especially with everything that's going on. And part of why I did that is because we are spending an inordinate amount of money here in reference to what this lawsuit is. And one of the things that would be really nice is if we could actually figure out what a future would look like and clean this up as soon as we can. We didn't get there. If I get an opportunity to ask them questions like that again, you might see me do it. And part of it is just to, try to further on the conversation and let them know that we are interested in actually understanding what a proposal would be, since we haven't seen one in quite some time. Other than that, in terms of the actual use, it's going to go to the BZA board. They'll make a determination about whether or not they allow the conditional use. And then from there, if it's approved, then they'll go out, work on site plans and bring them back to the planning commission for us to take another look at them when they come back. That's the process. Joe, did I get anything wrong there?
No, that's accurate.
Awesome. Every now and then
So
I
with that-
gobble it up.
Just thank you for asking those questions. And,
Yes.
And I wouldn't say needling them, but trying to nail them down.
Oh, I was needling them, and I mean, I'll just say it because I was doing it there, and I'll say
Yeah.
it again. It's like I'm interested in them coming to the table with an actual plan. I really am, and I think it's in the town's best interest that they do as soon as we can, so we can actually get to the brass tacks and actually talk through the real stuff here. And that's what it is. And I don't know if I was making any inroads or not. It was hard to tell in the conversation, but I wanted to make sure that it was well understood.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the discussion about the actual site was very good with the planning commission. I think they covered all the bases there.
Yep.
I just want to touch base on something you just said about an inordinate amount of money we're spending on legal fees. Came to my attention over the weekend that there's a rumor going around that we're spending $500,000 a month on legal fees. I just wanted to clarify that that's not even our annual budget on legal fees, not even close. So just for the public's edification, I wanted to just touch on your point that we're spending an inordinate amount of money. It is more than we usually spend.
That's right.
On an annual basis, but it's nowhere near $500,000 a month.
Well, and it's also in our best interest that we do hold these individuals accountable and we were all told to do this by the residents. So, and not only that, the hopeful resolution or the hopeful outcome will be that we will prove our case, and they'll be responsible to reimburse us for those, compensate us for those attorney's fees So,
And I'm not trying to, I absolutely agree with
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right, this is not 500,000, I think our total budget's like 250,000 for the year. But it's just annoying to me that we're spending money on that instead of putting money into our town and trying to actually better the place for all the citizens. And so that's why I tried to needle them a little bit.
well, and
in
I
terms
also
of-
want to just jump off of what you just said, because we are putting money into our town. What it's really doing is it's serving as not a distraction as much as we only have so many staff.
Right.
And so from that perspective, I think we're all feeling the wishes that we weren't having to do this.
Yeah.
But everything at a cost.
I just want to point out one other thing too, since we're talking about the money. The treasurer's report are published on the website.
Yep.
After every meeting, and it's a line item on the budget. You can see exactly what we spent and how much we spent and how much we budgeted.
And if you're so inclined to be inspired by numbers, please, 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 if you're going to be speaking about them publicly, you should probably know what they are. Right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no. It's right there on the website. It's not hidden. There's nothing hidden about it.
Absolutely not. Thank you for that, everyone.
That's all that I have.
Awesome.
I don't have a committee report, but I do want to make a comment that I had a good friend of mine come into town. She's been all over the world, been in the military, not her husband's been in the military. So she went and she's visited all sorts of countries, towns, whatever.
Let us have it, President Carter.
She absolutely loved coming to Main Street. She came down West Friendship, came down, crossed over the bridge. As soon as she crossed over the bridge, she goes, "Oh my goodness, the bright buildings and how wonderful." And now granted it's Monday, but she's like, it was just, she loved it.
Yeah.
So she's gonna come back.
It's a source of decompression.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing
And I
that.
just wanna let everybody know.
I love that story.
Yeah.
So I would just say, was she serving while her husband, while she was married, he was in the service?
Yes,
Then I would say she's serving as well.
yes, yes.
Absolutely.
And
Just for-
she
well done.
has a calling, so he is, well, I don't wanna say,
Okay.
take up time.
But yeah, just,
Yeah,
we don't do enough to honor our military families who support,
and she was a woman.
and she was a woman. Okay, so Parks and Rec, April 12th is the spring cleanup, and Easter egg hunt is at Miller Cooper Park at 10 a.m. on April 18th.
Thank you.
You'll be there?
I shall be there with bunny ears on.
There we go.
All right.
And a reminder that we will be having our second skate jam at South Branch Park on May 10th. So
Great.
for those who want to plan ahead and register.
Is your son gonna play again?
I don't know. There was after they got the noise ordinance for playing. He broke up with that band.
This is an event.
I know. He broke up with that band,
Intended
so-
consequence.
Is this why you only want 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's funny.
I'm trying to convince him to try to play at this event, but the other bandmates aren't too sure about it. So I will pass on the request. So, Historic District Commission had a meeting February 25th where there was one application. It was Pin It Up acupuncture, just changing the sign and changing the window decals that got approved. I believe it's already going on, right?
Yep.
I think it is already up, yeah, because as soon as it got approved, I noticed they were putting it up. And next meeting is the fourth Wednesday in the month. I don't know if we have any applications.
We do.
Okay, so that's that.
Excellent. Thank you.
DSC, this will be real brief. Garden activity planning is underway for the Little Sykes Garden, Schoolhouse Garden, and the Main Street Garden. They're doing their yearly Main Street walkthrough and annual planning meeting on March 15th. Main Street tours are starting up again. The next one is actually tomorrow at 6 p.m., kicking off here at the Townhouse porch. This is a guided walking tour that'll be led by the executive director, showcasing past and ongoing projects and beautification efforts in public art. This weekend on Main Street is called Get Lucky in Sykesville, and the merchants on Main Street are having some St. Patrick's Day fun with scavenger hunts, prizes, and more. Prizes are both family friendly and adult themed. Winners will be notified by email.
And that's on what day?
This weekend, the entire weekend for St. Patrick's Day weekend. And we have our annual DSC retreat this Saturday at Fairhaven. doing our yearly SWOT analysis and discussing progress and planning for this year and next year.
Awesome.
And happy March Madness to all who celebrate.
All who observe a very special culmination of and the beginning of something all at one time.
It's the greatest time of year.
It's the greatest time of year. There's songs about that, Joe. It just they don't have anything to do with basketball. Yeah. It's great. I actually have learned to enjoy it very much as well. I'm just not crazy when it comes to the brackets, which, by the way, I didn't get any invites to any brackets this year. So
They're not out.
They're not
yet.
yet.
no, but I don't even know about it. Like, is it happening?
Well, of course
It's definitely happening.
Because I came really close to not losing last year, so that was great. My updates are just want to share with you all. I did just spend 2 days in Annapolis last week advocating for Sykesville alongside mayors from all over the state. There are 91 mayors who are part of or actual members of the Maryland Mayors Association. That's 91 out of 157 possible. It was the largest MMA event, let alone conference, thus far in MML's history. So I was glad to be a part of that. And together, all of us, 157 mayors, represent, do you guys know how many people in the state of Maryland?
Half.
So a third, 2 million people live in municipalities in the state, while the others live in unincorporated areas. Anyway, I just want to say how refreshing it is and was those 2 days last week to be surrounded by leaders, elected officials at that, who just leave all the partisanship somewhere, maybe in their car, maybe at their house, but without regard to their political party. We're all there sharing a common goal, which is to elevate the quality of life of our residents. And so I took to Annapolis my concerns about some legislation, past and present, that does that awful thing that legislation sometimes does, which is to chip away at our local control of our own zoning and land use. And so I spoke to anyone and everyone with 2 ears that day, and got a lot of positive feedback. And I think that I will be submitting my application to MML's legislative committee. I'm done bitching to people. I want to be bitched at. So I'm going to be hopefully part of the sausage making and what it is that represents us at the state legislative level. So we'll be doing that for sure. I will be doing that for sure. And just want to let you guys know I learned some good stuff that I'll be sharing with you guys through some hopeful policy making, and got a meeting set up with a security company, if you will, that is all about accessing control of a security system. The lieutenant mentioned our cameras not catching necessarily some really important footage, and there's I think an opportunity for us to work with a partner that will actually either be able to use our existing hardware to create a much more usable on their platform, and provide us with more control and access to information and to the kind of things that an investigation requires to be successful. And also had a seminar, attended a seminar on code enforcement, which was something that I know Councilman Keenan mentioned not too long ago, is something that he and I actually are interested in at least talking more about, and perhaps creating some enforceable or usable, more functional policy behind, because I think everybody's quality of life improves when code enforcement is taking place. So that's it.
Mayor?
Yeah.
you're going to do the exact same thing I did.
Did you want to mention something about Eugene Johnson?
I would love to, thank you. And if I would have done this, I would have seen that, and I may not have swiped, so thank you for reminding me. Also, something I'd like to announce publicly, if you aren't aware or have ever heard of Eugene Johnson, it's because Eugene was 88, and you may not have lived here long enough to know that Eugene has left quite a legacy behind him in Sykesville. He is the longest serving town council member or elected official of any kind in Sykesville's history. He served for 24 selfless years. And for those of us that have been at the table for 12 or 16 or 22, it's or 4 or 8, it is, we all know what that means to do something for 24 years. And really, not for any other reason except how much you care about the place you call home. So Eugene was our first and actually of only 2 elected officials who are black in the history of Sykesville, and he is responsible or part of a group of people who are responsible for the development of the Schoolhouse Road development, which is an affordable and built as an affordable at the time housing development, and called one of those homes his. His wife is still living in that house, and I just wanted to announce that that is the reason why the flag was at half-staff, if anybody noticed, since the day after he passed and until today when he was laid to his final resting place. So just wanted to make that announcement, and also thank Justin Reddy, Senator Reddy, for his reading my Facebook post aloud on the Senate floor on Thursday, which was the day that all the mayors were there. And I think, I know that it's a habit of our state legislative entities, whether it be the delegates or the senators, that on the days that the mayors are there once a year, they like to bring forth some municipal thing. And this time they actually adjourned the Senate in honor of Eugene, which I thought was a class act and very due honor, if you will. So that's about all I have. Is there anyone else with anything for the good of the order?
Nope.
All right, I'm going to announce that we do have a closed session this evening. And that meeting is proposed to be closed pursuant to the general provisions of the article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B in this case, and number 3, to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto, and 8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The real property portion of our closed session is a consideration of purchasing property within town limits, and the potential and or ongoing litigation portion is with respect to the lawsuits with Warfield. And I'm about to call for a 5-minute recess to allow for the gallery to clear. After recess, the council will reconvene so as to go into executive session. And for now, we'll be in a 5-minute recess. Thank you.